Hi, everybody. Welcome to our next Tuesday chat. Hi, I'm Brenda Green, founder and CEO of the Be Strong Group, a nonprofit founded by my husband and I in honor of our son, Braden, who has sickle cell disease. And our mission is to spread awareness of sickle cell disease through education, advocacy, and empowerment. And as far as the education and empowerment piece, we decided to take on every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, a virtual discussion talking about topics that are important to our warriors as well as our caregivers. And to be honest, a lot of the topics that we discuss are applicable to a lot of people in our community. And we're so grateful for you following us, for you listening, and joining us for another Tuesday chat. And I'm so excited about our topic tonight because we have a special guest and she's returning. And she will talk to us tonight about navigating the educational system, public school system, during an ongoing pandemic. So I'm so excited to bring to you Dr. Tracie Swilley, an educator. She's principal of Fairfield Central High School, and she's back with us almost a year later to talk to us again about navigating this educational space. Dr. Swilley, thank you for being here. We're so happy to have you.
I'm glad to be back. We're back. As she said, I'm Dr. Tracie Swilley, proud principal here at Fairfield Central High School. Still navigating. Our theme for this year here at Fairfield Central is we survived, now let's thrive. But we need to say we're surviving. Now let's thrive. So I'm so excited to be back and in honor of Sickle Cell Month and Awareness Month and join you here tonight.
Okay, Dr. Swilley, if you want to share anything additional to those who may not know you and are listening now, first-time listener, tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can end with your personal connection with sickle cell disease.
Okay, well, I am a proud product of, I'll go all the way back to the beginning of Richland School District 1. And from there, I matriculated to Columbia College, majoring in mathematics, certifying to teach. I taught mathematics before moving into administration. I was assistant principal, dean of students, did all those things. And now I'm currently a principal at Fairfield Central, as well as completing my doctoral degree in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, added on the role of adjunct professor at Gardner-Webb University. So very, very excited to be in the education realm. That is my passion, is working with our youth. And so I'm excited to be able to do that on a daily basis. My experience with sickle cell actually started when I was a kid. My childhood best friend, who is no longer with us, Clarissa, was the first knowledge that I began to understand sickle cell and hear about it and know what it was. So I honor her in my commitment as well to participating now in honor of my nephew, Braden, who is the reason we're here tonight with the foundation of the Be Strong Group. And that's my current connection with making certain that others are aware of sickle cell disease, but also any chronic illnesses. And they have another level of interest in my passion for working with our students. And so that the third reason would be my connection to my students in my school building who have sickle cell disease or any other chronic illnesses that I am an advocate for on a daily basis. So that would be my connection to sickle cell.
Okay, and we're so proud of you. And for those of you who caught it or heard, yes, she is Braden's, my warrior, his auntie. And she's my youngest sister, and we're so proud. I'm proud of her and all of the accomplishment, and I can second the fact that she is very passionate about her students. She called them her babies or her kids, and that's something that's special. And as a parent of students that have gone through the public school system, and as well as a mom of a child with a chronic illness is really important. And I'm so happy for the parents of the kids that you have that have sickle cell disease, specifically since that's what I'm advocating for right now, who know that the person in charge at their child's school understands and get it. So
And
that's
just plug in, because I called my sister at the beginning of the year, and I had a rising ninth grader, and her mom came by the school, and she said, I feel comfortable letting my baby go to school because I saw you with the Be Strong group. And so that was powerful to me, because it gave this mother another level of comfort, because she saw the activity that I had and the connection I had with the Be Strong group. So she felt comfortable allowing her child to come to the school. And that did something additionally for me, because that is important. As a parent with a child in the school and my son who's in the school with me, I get to see firsthand that my kids are okay. But trusting your child to someone else's care, and you don't really always know what's happening, that's a big deal to me. And so for her to tell me that, I had an immediate call and tell the Be Strong group that you are making waves and movement. So I'm proud of my sister too, because sometimes she doesn't give herself enough credit, but the Be Strong group is out there, and they're doing what she wants to be done, and that's make everyone aware. So good job.
Thank you for that plug. So we appreciate it. And I just want to let our listeners know, hey, if you have any questions of Dr. Swilley, please put them in the comment section, and we'll make sure they get answered. I did get some questions beforehand from some parents. So we're gonna, kind of do a Q&A. And Dr. Swilley is a professional at this, so she knows, what information that is important to us. And like we mentioned, she has a connection. She also volunteers with the Be Strong group. So we're so excited. Well, we're so appreciative of the support she can give, not only as one of my village, Braden's village, but also as an educator, as a professional. She has some good feedback that can make the organization as a whole be more beneficial to the community that we serve. So again, thank you. So Dr. Swilley, let's get started. Let's start off at the basics. Talk about some of the tools that are already in place, even before COVID, and last year during COVID, and now during an ongoing pandemic. Tell us some of the products that are already in place for parents of kids with sickle cell disease or any chronic illness, as far as accommodations.
Right. And so the accommodations we have in place beyond, I would tell every parent, though, begin with your school nurse. All right. Begin with your school nurse. Make certain that your school nurse is aware of the needs of your student, because that begins to be your first advocate. Secondly, the accommodations that are in place. A lot of times people feel like the special education umbrella is only available to students who may have some type of learning disability. But the special education umbrella also covers students who have chronic illnesses. And so you can get accommodations via a 504 plan that you can specifically lay out the needs of your child, so that you will know so that everybody will know, including your child's teachers, especially once they get to the high school level. That changes periodically at the semester and everything. So you want to make certain that the information is not missed for any person. So you have that 504 opportunity to lay out what is needed for your child. And then that allows you to be the advocate for when you're not here, and that paper will speak for the needs of your child. Thirdly, I would say I know we have a big thing going on about masks, but those options are still available. Teach your child how to protect themselves, regardless of whether everybody opts out of that protection. Even with the vaccination, the high school kids, I highly recommend my parents to talk to their child's pediatrician to see about their child getting vaccinated. And if it's permitted for your child to get vaccinated, please get them vaccinated, because You know, a lot of times people say, well, I don't know what's in the vaccine. Well, how many of us know what's in any of the vaccines? We don't. So if we believe in science on one accord, let's believe in it on another accord and get true, founded, grounded information. Because I think a lot of the information that we're being fed now via social media may not be the facts. So we want to definitely get in the facts. So I did a lot of research myself. I spoke with Dr. Bell on several occasions to help me be informed in my communications for my students and my families, to educate them on the proper information. And I even found out that, like most people thought the vaccine just was created in the last year or so, but they've been working on this since like 2005. So it's not anything that is new. So getting informed on accurate information. I will say social distancing, now that all of the kids are back in school, is almost impossible, depending on the classes. So again, that's the point of, there are things you can ask for. If you can see on my camera a little bit, I have some desk shields on my camera. So parents have that ability that they can ask for their students to have desk shields in their classroom, along with any other safeguards that you want to provide for your child. So hand sanitizer is in all of our classrooms, all of our hallways. We provide our students and our teachers with wipes to wipe down the desk that they sit in, and things of that nature. I provide my teachers with Lysol to spray during the change of classes. In the hallways, I highly encourage kids to wear their masks, because then social distancing is eliminated. If your students have the option to have lunch inside and outside, if they can choose on the good days to go outside, because we know it's less, it does better if you can sit outside and you don't have to worry about as much transmission. So if you can get some fresh air, get some vitamin D. So I encourage my kids to go outside when possible during their lunchtime, if those options are available. But again, if you have a need that you feel that you need to have, make certain you communicate. That open line of communication with your child's school is essential. So a lot of times before we get on social media and blast what the school hasn't done or what won't be done, reach out to the school and give them an opportunity to have that dialogue with you. Because again, you guys, this is what we went to school for. And we're not able to do our normal things with our kids due to the pandemic as well. So we're experiencing some of the same frustrations. I mean, we have to get creative with group work. We have to, I can't even have a pet rally right now. It's like certain things that we want to do as educators, we can't fully do because we're in a pandemic and we got to worry about the safety and protection of all students. So communication is key to any of the needs, but we have those basic essentials in place, along with pre-existing things to include a 504 and needs expressed through the school nurse for your particular student.
Okay, and you said a lot of good stuff, but communication, that is key.
Right.
So it's important for you, for parents, us parents, to communicate our concerns to the school through the school nurse, counselor, and to communicate that appropriately. And given the fact that, like I say, a lot of times, even of course, before COVID, elementary school, middle school for Braden, we would have to, at the beginning of the school year, do his 504, his emergency action plan, and have that in place. And, we were mainly concerned about the issues that he may go through just by the regular stuff, just by the illness itself. Right. And now on top of that, now we have something, a virus that's, yes, there's a vaccine for it. Yes, you have to wear a mask, but all of the treatments that come along with being able to confidently treat him if is exposed are not all that certain. Even a lot of those are trial, the treatment. So that adds a level of stress on for us, because now we have to incorporate and worry about, okay, that type of exposure. So therefore, what provisions are in place to help protect him for that? And then, you mentioned it, social distance and masking, they only help, and vaccination, it only helps. And I just want to remind our followers, if you hear, like we talk about the vaccine, but Dr. Swilley mentioned, you need to talk to your child's pediatrician or your child's specialist to identify whether or not the vaccine is appropriate or whatever specific for your child's health or even yours. Please consult your primary care doctor. What we're sharing today is for educational purposes and just sharing from her expertise and what she lives and what she does. That's what we're sharing with you today. So keep that in mind. Dr. Swilley, can we ask you a couple of questions that were posed to us? So one mom asked, what are some tips or some ways to express concerns about your child's teacher to your child about your child to teachers or administrators, especially concerning COVID provisions? What's some tips and how to communicate that information?
Well, I will stress always the importance of constant communication. So I think a lot of times, as things change, the needs may change.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we need to do is have constant, reoccurring, scheduled, planned communication, whether it be quarterly, whether it be monthly, some type of check-in to keep things up to date and current. I would say first, I have an open door policy. And so as long as my schedule allows for it, I'll meet with my parents whenever. I give out my parents my cell phone number and all things of that nature, because I want them to feel like they have, again, it's as a parent in my mind, I need to be able to access if something is going wrong. I need to see what's going on. So the first thing I would say is establish meet with your schools, especially at the middle, high school level. You're going to have multiple layers. So you could have grade level administrators. You could have different personnel that are responsible for working with your student. So identify who those persons are at your school, and then make certain they are all aware of the needs of your child. And like I said, if there's concerns, first reach out to the teacher. I think that part gets eliminated a lot. Reach out to the teacher, because sometimes there could be a misunderstanding. There could be an oversight. We're human. Errors are made. So reach out to the teacher first and initiate that communication. Because most of the time when they get to me, I'm going to ask, well, did you speak with the teacher?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to figure that out first. So reach out to the child's teacher. If you're not getting a response, and I tell people normally 24 hours, if you don't get a response, then you need to step it up a next level. So then reach out to your child's grade level administrator or to the principal of the school so that you can get some type of answer to whatever your question may be. Schedule a conference. A lot of times, don't put it in email, especially not in the midst of that emotion, because a lot of time your email will come across the wrong way, and maybe that's the way you meant it at that moment. But in emotion, I've learned to step away from it. So email sometimes can come across wrong, and it's not really what you're saying, because you can't really tell the person how to read it or receive it. So I like to have open communication where we talking, whether it's picking up the phone, coming in. Now that we're back into taking people in face to face, and have that conversation. I also think too, if we're going to send our children to school, then request the in-person conference, because that will help you see too, walking in the building, seeing what is going on, seeing what is happening. That will allow you to get a feel for what is currently taking place in your school. Because if your school is open for your child, then it should be some time to make provisions for a meeting with the staff person. Work around the teacher's planning period. And try to schedule those meetings not during the school day, but maybe after school or before school, maybe an opportune time to have those meetings. But again, the key is to have the meeting. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume that we already know it, because we may not.
Mm-hmm.
And just make certain your needs are heard. And then if it's something not being done, and you have a conversation and you still feel like you didn't get a resolve, then take it to the next level. And that may be the administrator. So we can figure out if that's something we can do, or what accommodations we can to make each party be able to meet in the middle to get because the ultimate, like I tell my teachers, the ultimate responsibility we have is to take care of the children. So those are our customers per se. And so we want to have the Chick-fil-A service of schools. Okay. And so that's the goal here, to have the Chick-fil-A service of schools. And so we want to make certain we take care of our customers, and meet them where they are to get them where they need to be. And that's our goal here.
Oh, that's great. And you kind of, well, you did go into our next question, because I know in a couple of sessions we had about we are the captain of our team, and our child is the star player. And our team consists of the medical providers, our village, school, the administrators, teachers, staff. They're our team. And you gave us some feedback on how to create that cohesive team at school. Anything you want to add towards that team?
And I also say most schools have emergency response teams, or I even have a team that supports my nurse, because it's times when the nurse may be out. So I have other people in my building who are my go-to persons who need to know information about your child just in case the nurse is out. So I have another staff person who had EMS experience. And so it's different people in the building that can be a part of this team. Just as we have an emergency response team, it's other people in the building that can be on your child's team that are not necessarily the teachers. If your child is involved in extracurricular activities, that may not be your child's teacher, but that person needs to know, because that child is going to be with that person sometime. And it could be that they are not around a school nurse. So your child, that person would need to know how to serve your child should they have a crisis, or should they have some type of issue happen with them, or there be an exposure or allergic reaction, or in things of that nature. Like, what do I do other than freak out? We need them to be equipped. And the example I give parents is, think about the fire drill. Like, how many school fires have you heard of where school has totally burned down? Very few. But that's something we do every month. And if you're a school, you in the public schools or any schools, you know about that monthly fire drill. Because what it is, the goal with drills and things of that nature is to make certain that it's second nature in your response time. Because you want to do it so much that it's second nature. So that's why I say keep the conversations going, make it ongoing, so that people who are working with your child, the response time will be quick, because it's second nature. I already know what to do. I already know what to do if I see a kid, who has sickle cell, and their problem. I already know what to do if I have a diabetic. I already know. So you go into the mode of action because you're not trying to figure it out. So I always tell them to think of the amount of fire drills, because everybody know, and everybody keep asking, why are we doing a fire drill every month? And so because it's second nature, if there is a fire, we know how to evacuate everybody in under 5 minutes. We can get the whole school evacuated. We know how to find everybody, and there's a process for it, because it's just happened in life. And so that's what we want to make certain that you relate that in your mind, so that you'll keep the communication ongoing and make sure it's something we do all the time.
You know what? That's such good feedback. That's such good information to know, because it tells us parent that, we should know this. We have to be actively involved in our child's life. And, like, we're actively involved with his medical doctors, taking them to the doctor. But when it comes to school, just like from what you're saying, we shouldn't hesitate to know who all will be involved in their child's care. Right. And that you all will be open to us knowing who's involved with our child's care. So that is, I hope you all are listening. This is some good information to take with us, and know that, we can, like we've said in the past, we have to take care of the whole child. Right. And then along the way, teach them how to advocate for themselves. Correct. And especially in high school age, wouldn't you encourage that student to also be more comfortable to speak up for themselves as well? Yeah,
your child is an active member of the team. Mm-hmm. They're an active member of the team. And we ask them, tell us how you feel about it. Because what you also have to remember as this age is they're teenagers. Mm-hmm. So everything is embarrassing. Everything is, like a big deal, like over dramatized. And so you have to respect that, though, because that's a part of growing up. And so you have to respect that. And so we try to do things discreet. and we give them signals, and their teacher can get signals so they're not exposed in front of their peers, because that's very hard to do. And if something does happen with a child that's an emergency situation, the first thing we do as educators is empty the room so that they're not worried about what's happening with my body and then what is everybody else seeing around me. And that don't necessarily happen a lot depending on the situation with the sickle cell kid. But when you get into other chronic illnesses or kids who have seizures and things of that nature, it can be embarrassing, especially when you don't have control of bodily functions, and things are happening out of your control. All teenagers and all kids don't understand that. And so one of the big things we do is make certain we empty the room, so that we know what's happening. Or your child has a code word with the teacher, so the teacher knows what's happening. Like, I don't have time to write a pass because the teacher now knows what's happening. And again, has triggered this response to go into action mode and not be waiting to try to figure out, well, what's going on with you? What's wrong? Why are you looking like that? You already know. So you already go into action mode for the child.
And code word, things like that. Those are things that, those of us whose children don't go to Dr. Swilley's school, those are things we can take back to our child's school and say, hey, we can incorporate it in their plan, in their fire drill plan, in their emergency action plan, to include provisions for a code word. Because I know that's very true. Somebody I know do not like to feel different.
Right.
Do not like to be called out at all. But then there are times that are critical, especially with sickle cell disease, because some things, and by experience, that if we don't catch it early, it can just happen so fast and become worse. So we have to stress to him, hey, if you start getting a pain, feeling pain, ask to be excused, see the nurse, and go ahead and take care of it, because we don't want it to get bad. So I'm glad you mentioned those tidbits as well. And you mentioned earlier about extracurricular activities. One of the questions was, my child has sickle, this is a parent. My child has sickle cell disease, but they like to play sports. But there are some accommodations that need to be in place in order for them to be able to play it safely. Do you have any thoughts on how they can communicate that desire or that want for their child to participate in sports, and how they can communicate with their administrator, with the coaches and things like that? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the biggest thing, and I can speak a lot for middle high school, especially once they get into competing with sub-varsity, varsity level sports, we have a trainer, and your schools all should have an athletic trainer that is responsible for the care of the students and for being that medical go-to between the coaches and the kid. So that is a person to involved in the plan. The coach is a person to involve in the plan. So you want to make certain you have those meetings, because a child can't be discriminated against. If a physician has cleared them to participate in extracurricular activities, whatever the sport is, then a child can't be discriminated against because they have this particular illness. So you want to make certain that everybody does know too how to deal with it and how to recognize and what's going on. And the big thing, especially with our young men, is really realizing their max. Because a lot of times it'll be, you can push through that. It's not that bad, or one more play. And our young people will try to do that. But in the case of chronic illness, you have to be able to pull it. You have to know, okay, this is it. And your child has to be okay with saying, my body is telling me that something's going on that it should not be. And the coach has to respect that. So again, that communication of letting them know, because sickle cell is one of those illnesses that is not really any physical, nothing you can see. It's nothing you can see, because even when my nephew is in a crisis, unless it's to the point where it's really, really bad, he moves along business as usual. You would never know he was in pain. And so that's the part that, has to be clear to the coach, or the athletic trainer, the athletic director, is if my child says he's in pain, number one, you know he's in pain because it took us a long time to even say that. So it's really bad, and allow him to stop. Don't do one more. Don't say one more set, one more round, 5 more minutes, whatever it may be. Know when it's time to say that's enough, and respect that. So, yeah, I would say, fathers, I would say though, I'm that mother too, that will push, and I'll say, you gonna play football, you need to play. So I'm that mother too, so I have to kind of say, okay, wait a minute. But it's kind of, you get caught up in the adrenaline of the moment, and you'll, especially if your kid happens to be good at it, they'll push them because you're that star. Like, we need you. And when a kid hears those kind of words, they sometimes will push past what their body is telling them, hey, it should halt against. And, we've seen tragedies in our area recently, and we definitely don't want that. I can tell you from a principal's perspective, and, you don't ever want to deal with anything happening to a child, but ultimately not a child's death, and feel like there's something you could have done. And so that's definitely what we want to make certain that's a clear understanding. But the athletic trainer is the person, the coach, depending on how many coaches, it may be their assistant coach, especially with something like football. Those are persons that are hanging on a little bit closer to them, and can recognize things more than maybe the head coach. So I tell people it's kind of the same scenario of the head principal. It's assistant principals because that person may be more directly closely to your kid. So that assistant coach may be more interactive to your kid than that head coach. So making sure everybody's aware that will have direct interaction with your kid. But the athletic trainer is very, very your first line of defense, because most of the time the coaches will be mad at the athletic trainer because the athletic trainer is going to say, stop, wait a minute, come on. And I'm going to take this kid with me, and they'll end it mostly way before the kid or the coach even wants to end it. So making certain that person is aware of what's happening is what I would recommend for extracurricular activities.
Okay, and again, that's good information. It also bottoms out to
that includes band.
Mm-hmm.
Band takes strenuous activities. That's a sport. Cheerleading, I think a lot of times we only think of contact sports. So there are a lot of sports, dance. It's a lot of things that kids can participate in that can cause extra taxing on the body.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make certain that those persons are aware of when to say, I'm at the max right now, and it's respected on by all parties when it is.
Right. And, this is all good information as we see this comment here, great information that you're sharing. And it takes me back to something I heard. And one thing that, a lot of times I can speak, well, I'm a mom of a sickle cell warrior. And you don't want to make a decision that may hold them back or limit them. And you don't want that illness to limit them, but then you want them to live and live without, a lot of complications. And I had someone to tell me, well, since he's missing so many days of school, and in the hospital a lot, this was years ago. Perhaps you shouldn't push him and make him take those honors classes. Just put him in regular classes and don't push him too much because that might stress him out. And fortunately, after talking to my educator in my village and other people, it was like, no, don't let that limit you or limit your child. So what would you say to that? I know what you're telling us is communicate. As long as we inform the team players, at the school, our child don't have to be limited.
Right. And I would say too, a lot of times those decisions are made because people don't know. They just see it as the child not putting forth the effort, or the child having a bad attendance, or truant, or stuff like that. So a lot of times if they don't know or see the code as medical to figure out something is wrong, I like now that Power School even has a little alert thing. It's a medical symbol that we can identify who those students are. So even if it's a kid that I don't necessarily know, if they have a symbol by their name, I know if something's going on, and I pull the kid up in Power School and I say, oh, wait a minute, let me get my nurse, let me see what's going on, to make certain what. So it's a way that everybody can be alerted that there is, and we can click on it and see what their medical condition is, so we know what we need to do. And so it's a lot of different things that we have at our disposal. And I will say, one of the good things about the pandemic, it has put so many more resources at our disposal for working with our kids who have to be out a lot. A lot of times you had to wait on homebound teachers and all of that type of thing to get your child what they need. Now, Zoom, log in, we can't do it now for, virtual and make everybody virtual. But my teachers, because we've had to prepare a plan for quarantine students, my teachers record their lessons every day, because that's something we started doing in the pandemic. We don't go live every day, but they record them every day, upload it to Google Classroom. Now the child can watch the lesson as if they're in class. So that was an accommodation, because I was trying to figure out, okay, how will this not be a burden on the teacher? How can the child still get their days? Because they could be out of school for 14 days quarantine. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And so how can they get what they need? So one of the things that are good about the pandemic is we're not going to go back to just business as usual. We've learned a lot of things that make us do our job better, and then allow us to make additional accommodations for our students. So my teachers do tutoring in the afternoon. Kids can log on via Zoom. They don't have to stay after school. I don't have a ride. I don't have transportation. In a rural area, that's the big thing, is I don't have a way to get home if I stay for tutoring. That's easy. The pandemic told us to log on to Google Meet, have a tutoring session, get what you need, and then you have it all done. So when I say it's a lot of things now that can be done that we've learned during the pandemic that can help our students with illnesses that require sometimes for them to be out of school for long periods of time. They don't have to miss the loop of what's happening in their classrooms. They can still participate and navigate, but no one can tell you that because your child has a chronic illness, they can't take this honors class. That is illegal. It's against the law. And so they can't do that. So that's why I was like, no, that's not an option. You have to meet the child where they are. And it's not like they're just not being there. They're not there because of a medical condition that has absolutely nothing to do with their ability to thrive. And so you do not impede a kid from the ability to take the upper level courses because of a medical condition. You have to make the accommodation. And so that's what we'll do now. But I will say the pandemic has taught us additional accommodations that we can make.
Okay, and that's good. And we move into, like you mentioned at the beginning, you recognize the Sickle Cell Awareness Month.
Right.
September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month. And, a large piece of that is spreading awareness through education. What are your recommendations, and especially with the comment that someone in the school system told me, and you say maybe they didn't know, how can we help to educate or to help educate members in the school on sickle cell disease specifically? What are your thoughts on maybe there's some type of recognition, even during the month of September at your school or a school, about the initiative, taking on the initiative of sickle cell awareness just to spread awareness?
And I will say, and I just thought about this while we're here tonight. Every school has required by law to have a school improvement council. Every school. And so now PTSA, PTA, those are optional, but every school by law has to have a school improvement council. So I would recommend, and I'm just thinking about that myself, my first school improvement council meeting is next week. And most people start their first ones in September. Partner with your school improvement council to set up either an informational table, do a presentation at the school improvement council meeting, just to put the information out there and make the awareness available. That will be a good one because everyone has to have it by law. And they have to meet 9 times out of a year. That's why I say most people started at least in September so that they can get the 9 times in before June, because that will be the last month, and you definitely don't want to do that. May and June, you want to be off, kind of not to have to worry about it. So that's one of the things that I thought about. Also, we often do Breast Cancer Awareness Month activities. So, hey, why don't we do Sickle Cell Awareness Month activities? But again, it's about making it aware. So, we began to make other months of cancer aware in my particular building because we had people in the building battling it. So, I think the biggest thing too is to make people aware in your school that what students you have battling or dealing with sickle cell, and then do a sickle cell awareness month recognition, even if you tag in a sporting event. So I know breast cancer awareness month, we normally have a breast cancer game where our guys are going to wear pink or our girls wear pink during volleyball, because normally what's going on now is volleyball, tennis. My band, I have pink plumes on their hats. So it's out there because it was this big push with breast cancer awareness month. So maybe some of those same lines for sickle cell awareness month and the color, and go from there, because I'll be all in for the red ribbons. That would work out well for me, and we would go well with doing it that way. And I think that would do about it's about awareness, because we can remember it was a time breast cancer wasn't a big deal, and then it became about awareness. And then a lot of times the males were not into the breast cancer awareness, but then you found out males can get breast cancer. So it's just about informing people. And so I would say the same thing about sickle cell, but maybe patching with your school improvement council, reaching out to the principal. And again, that communication of making people aware that you have students in your school actually dealing with it. And so I have to have that conversation with my staff as we begin the year, especially about those illnesses that students deal with that you won't see.
Right.
You won't recognize from looking at a kid. And those are the things that we do here.
Okay, and that's some good information. And as parents, we are advocates, so that's one thing we can advocate for, in spreading awareness, and it only helps as well. And then a lot of time, I think we'll be surprised of how supportive our schools will be, because at least I've experienced. I know that a lot of the over the years from elementary through high school, we've been very supportive in our schools, the schools that Breda has been to. So, but it's a matter of speaking up and putting it out there. So that I thought that was a good question. So that was some very good. I didn't think about the SIC. So that's a good means as well.
And your schools are looking for feel good stories. I'm gonna tell you, your schools we want to do things to celebrate, our students overcoming, persevering, pushing through. Like it's easy for your kids sometimes to get overlooked, but bringing it to the forefront and recognizing your kids, recognizing your staff, because we've had staff members battling cancer and people didn't know. And we recognize breast cancer survivors and things of that nature doing events and games. So it's and like I said, make certain we talk to our kids, get their input on it, because they like, wait a minute now. But I think too, it'll help the kids kind of with the fitting in piece of it, and that sense of normalcy and sense of I'm okay, like I'm not the only one dealing with this, because sometimes they can have sickle cell in their same school and don't realize it.
Right.
So even knowing, because what we do is club day or support groups. So that can be something through your school social worker or your school guidance counselor, that you have a support group, even if it's not a big enough population to have just a sickle cell support group, but it could be a chronic illnesses group. So your kids with sickle cell, diabetes, cancer, those different types of things can meet and just chat with how they're feeling, and they see somebody else dealing with the same thing. And that has worked well. I know we've done some support groups for grief for students, and that has done well for them too, because a lot of times they feel like they're alone. Nobody else understands what I'm going through. Nobody. And you old people, I have to tell them all the time, I'm not old. You old people want to tell us you guys understand, but to see another teen, see another 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grader, 7th to 8th grader going through the same situation, they now have that little circle of friends that I know is okay. That I got someone else that knows what I'm feeling, and they're my age.
Right.
They can relate to what I'm feeling. And so that's always good as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
This has been a great discussion. This is a key portion of our children's lives.
Right.
And COVID just so happened to add another mountain or hill, and the level of complications into that education process. So, can you just tell us, since this pandemic has gone into another school year,
I,
um, just share some of the general concerns you have just for all of your students and for your staff. Um, and if you want to point out anything specific to any of your students who may have a chronic illness or special needs, what is your general concerns over that?
well, I will say this year has been very heavy. I will say because as a leader, and my boss often tells me, shout out to Dr. Green, my boss often tells me it's not how a leader responds when everything is going good. It's how a leader responds when things are tough that matters. But this year has been heavy because it's so many things out of my control. Like last year, I could control the number of people that was in here. Last year, I could control if you wore a mask. Last year, I could control social distancing. Last year, it was so many things I could control that I can no longer control. And then when the new Delta variant began to hit kids, and I even had athletes that had to get oxygen. I mean, and I was like, okay, this is scary. And then when I had, and I think I thought being vaccinated that I was good. And then when vaccinated people I was like, okay, wait a minute. So and I have I have some gems in my building who have been teaching 38, 42 years, y'all.
Wow.
And I was like, if something happened to them, whether the exposure happened here at school or happened somewhere else, because I just want to put this tidbit out there. COVID is not only in schools, people, it's everywhere else. So if your child gets COVID, it doesn't mean that it came from school, especially if they're going other places.
Right.
But if something happened to one of my staff members, to my students, that ends their life, like, oh, that was heavy. That was the weight of it all that was on me. And so the thing is, I encourage my kids every morning to wear their mask. I highly recommend it for their safety. We put what precautions we can put in place, but I encourage people to monitor their health. The biggest thing with this is honesty, because we're trusting so many people to tell us if you don't feel well, if someone in your house is positive, if you've been exposed to someone who is positive. We're trusting so many people to do so many things that we never had to trust them to do. And so that's a concern for me. So the number one I'm expressed to everybody, be honest. If your child ends up having to quarantine, understand the importance of having them quarantined, because they come in and expose a kid and maybe they fight it off, but maybe the kid they expose it to cannot fight it off, because you don't know. Like, they don't wear a sign to say I have a weakened immune system. You wouldn't know that. And so honesty is the key. And so I think that's too was a stressor, because you find out people are not honest, and you find out they're not telling you the information because they're being selfish about the need for them to want to have their child in school. And so that's why I try to push the vaccines with pediatrician recommend or primary care physician recommendation, and make a way for my quarantine students to still get the information they needed to be successful. So it wasn't a push for them to be in school when they know they have been exposed. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say in this pandemic that makes my heart pour out and do a little bit more of making sure I'm aware of who my students are with chronic illnesses, is because I feel another need to protect them even more. So if I find out if there's an affected student in the class, no, we can't tell the parent who that is. We do the contact tracing. We find out if there's a close contact, but I'm going to make certain that child knows who has a chronic illness that I had an exposure in class today. So that parent can monitor, which I do for all of my kids, so they can monitor for symptoms for the next 14 days. And so that they can be aware, because I've seen firsthand of what a common cold can do to a child with a weakened immune system. I've seen. And so I will never forget that. And so that's something that's ingrained in me that I will try to also ingrain in my staff, so that, and again, with my parents and our community, that's why community advocacy is so important, so that the community at large understands we're not just trying to make your life complicated. We're trying to save another life in the process. And so those will be the recommendations that I would make at this time: is honesty, an extension of grace. We're not perfect. We don't always get it right. We may not call during school hours. We have to call after school hours. But extend grace and be honest as we all navigate something we never thought we would ever experience in our lives, but definitely didn't think we'll be going into year 2 with it.
Right.
As we go through another school year. So I just want to have normal, whatever that may be at this point. But we want to, as educators, make sure we bridge that gap with our parents of knowing that we're here, number one, to ensure that your child is in a safe environment, because nothing else can take place after that. No learning, no anything, if the child doesn't feel safe, secure, and being able to thrive in their element, because that's a big deal. And your children who have weakened immune systems, they know it. So they're a little apprehensive. Their guards are up because they're like, wait a minute, what's happening? You coughed too many times. Like, okay, yeah. So their nerves are up, so they can't even come in with the same sense of relaxing in the school environment. So listen to your kids. Talk to them every morning. Talk to them when they get out, and notice. Because I even tell in my kids, I can look in their faces and I'll say, "What's wrong?" Because something ain't right, and they'll say nothing. And I said, okay, I'm your mother, right? I birthed you. You lived under my heart for a long time. So I know from the inside out. Okay. So tell me what's going on. And then normally my child and both of them are composed in tears, and then the story comes out. So communicate not only with the schools, but communicate with your kid, because they'll share with you, even if you have to pull it out of the teenagers. They'll share with you what is going on and what's making them feel uncomfortable. And then don't just brush it under the rug. Embrace, acknowledge their emotions, acknowledge their feelings, and then take the necessary steps to help them. Respecting that they're trying to be incognito, respecting that fact. And most of the schools know how to do that and respect their privacy and confidentiality, but still give them the care that they need and attention that they need.
This is such good information. And, again, it's coming from a parent who, especially after last year in virtual, that was not the best experience for us. And I know that even though this is your calling, my calling is not to teach.
Oh, it's not good for the educators. I
know. That was, and I knew that he really needed in-person instruction. But then, it was such a hard decision, because I'm like, God, I do not want it to be at the cost of his life.
Right.
And so that has been my struggle, because we want, and I think in my position of being a child with a chronic illness, I'm more empathetic as Braden mom. That's what he's brought out to me. So I think of others way more than I used to.
Right.
And so it's just hard for me to accept or to understand or relate to parents who don't think of other children as well. If you're blessed to have a child without any medical illnesses or disabilities, and to not be as concerned about another child, their life. And so that was my struggle in going back. But the message you gave about communicating effectively with everybody at the school, being open, share, the information, make sure everything's in place. They are aware of what's going on. Even I've had where his medical doctors have called and talked to the guidance counselor at the school. That's the way that they did. So I've made sure my team is connected, so that he can get the best care. But I hope everybody who listens understands the importance of communication, and even if it's uncomfortable,
Right.
because we're advocating for our children's lives.
And that's why advocacy is so important, because I will never believe that a parent will intentionally do that, because I just want to find the good in everybody. But I think it's a lack of knowledge, a lack of knowledge of what a common cold can do to a child with a weakened immune system. So when I have parents who say, oh, I think it may be just their allergies seasonally, I said, ma'am, unfortunately, the symptoms are the same and we're going to have to check it out. I'm sorry. Because it's the same symptoms. We don't know what it is. And anxiety, yes, I see the comment, anxiety overload, yes. But the thing is, too, even with the illnesses, even with the pandemic, even with everything we got on, I think you mentioned earlier, we got to worry about the whole child. Mental health is important.
Oh, absolutely.
And so this thing has shed a light on the mental health of our students and staff. And so I've had students, I mean, we've had clubs added for club day that kids just ask for. I need a moment just to go woosah. I need a moment just to have blue light in the room, and I can lay down, I can lay my head back and just forget my cares for 20 minutes. And so hearing that from kids, and believe it or not, you all, it's my honors kids that they put so much on their plate and they just are so overwhelmed. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. But they would never feel like they could tell you that, because it's the expectation that they got it all together. And so especially when you add on a chronic illness, honors classes, multiple classes, I think kids who transfer into me, the biggest thing I hear them say, oh my God, y'all only have 4 classes, because I'm on a 4x4 schedule versus an AB. So especially if your babies have AB schedule, they're dealing with 8 classes at a time, different days. That's a lot on a kid. And I know you said, well, we went through it as a kid. They build a little different now. So yeah, it's a lot going on right now. We didn't face all of the outside stimuli that our kids currently in face, especially with social media. I'm so thankful social media was not the way it is when I was growing up. But they're dealing with so many of that. They're worrying about how many likes they got, and they're worrying about this, that, and the third, and how many followers. And so those things are important to them. So it's all kind of stressors coming on. Add on top of that a pandemic, add on top of that a chronic illness, and you have anxiety overload. So we want to make certain, again, communication is key with the schools, but also that in the process of worrying about their health, that we make certain we don't miss the mental health aspect as well, because that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And that will prevent your child from thriving to their full potential if they feel like it's just too much and they shut down. So you want to make certain that's a part of the treatment plan in the schools as well, is even if it's a timeout to talk, if a timeout to go see your counselor and have a conversation, or your school social worker, whatever people you may have in your building at your access to. Some schools have more than others, but create that circle. Find out who that teacher is. Every kid has that one person. Figure out who that person is on that campus, and make certain that person is a part of the team and understand what's happening. Because every kid has a person on there they're going to go to that person before they go to anybody in the school. Make certain that person is included on the team as well.
Oh, absolutely. This is great stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned mental health. And I know at our children's hospital in the sickle cell clinic, the cancer and blood disorders clinic, there is a great staff there who will definitely talk to our children with sickle cell disease. Will definitely reach out to the schools and talk to the counselors if need be, or the nurse, to kind of help that child along. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Again, with communicating with everybody and making sure the right people are on your team. So, Dr. Swilley, we had some good comment. We had some feedback here. I'm going to go back and hello, Brenda, SWGA. Thank you for listening, you guys. Forgiving Hearts, they're listening. Great topic. This is definitely a great And awesome topic and very needed. This discussion needed to have been had, and I hope everybody benefit from listening. And those of you who are listening in the replay, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and we'll make sure Dr. Swilley sees them, and she'll get them answered. We got a she's so awesome.
Oh.
You're so awesome. I know she is, Visha. She really is. But we got some great comments and feedback. I like this one too. I love when siblings work together, especially.
Oh, most definitely.
Yes, we are our sister's keepers.
Yes.
No, and I'm so I'm so proud of her. And she's definitely a benefit to me because I rely on her. She's my little sister, but she has a whole lot of experience in this area and a great source of information. And I really appreciate that. So thank you guys for listening. We got hearts from Miss Rhonda Adams. Thank you for listening, Rhonda. And just a couple of other comments. That's a great recommendation that you have. I mean, you gave some great gems tonight. So
I took notes myself of stuff I'm gonna add. I was like, oh, that was a good idea. Yeah.
So, yes. Yeah. So is there anything else? We've had you for a while. Almost over an hour. Is there anything else you want to share in closing?
No, I'm thankful. Again, I'm thankful for the Be Strong group. I'm thankful for the advocacy. I'm thankful for all you do to make. Oh, Miss Ennis, my teacher's here. Hey, but I'm thankful for all that you do to advocate in the community for our students, because it is definitely needed for our children, and making everybody aware. I think, like I said, I grew up with it. I didn't really kind of know. I just knew sometimes we had to take a time out. We had to take a break from playing. So didn't really truly understand what was going on. So information and awareness is key. So thank you. Continue to share on behalf of your son. But you started it because of your son, but you're impacting so many more other lives because you took the route of not being selfish and wanted to share with everybody else. So I'm thankful for what you're doing in our community, and keep it up. And I'm always support right here. My cousin has sickle cell back home in Jamaica, so I'm always tuned in. Also, Miss Ennis, I got a lot of staff from Jamaica, so I can't wait till we going to the beautiful island of Jamaica. I'm going with Miss Ennis. We going to Jamaica. So I'm excited. But yes, it is not just it's all over the world that people are battling with sickle cell. And so again, making it aware and including them in what we do is so important. So I'm gonna be an advocate for any kids that I have, and we'll continue to work together to make the best for all students in our schools.
Okay. Well, again, you guys, thank you all for listening. Again, if you're listening on replay, put your questions or your comments in the comment section. We'll make sure Dr. Swilley sees them. We appreciate you. Continue to listening. We're going to have great topics for the remainder of Sickle Cell Awareness Month. Dr. Swilley gave me some new ideas as other ways we can advocate and spread awareness, even within the school system. So thank you again, Dr. Swilley, and we'll catch you guys the next time. Take care. Bye.